It seems like, at least on some local levels, there's a constant theme of catching something. There's people that are concerned about the voting machines. There's people concerned about ballot dumping. There's people concerned about mail-in ballots. What is your thoughts on that?
There is no doubt there are improvements that need to be made to ensure the integrity of our elections. Period. Full stop. This is something that I sought to address while I was in Congress with a very, very simple piece of legislation that would have said, or that would have implemented federal funding for each state to require either a paper ballot or a paper record of an electronic vote that's cast. That way, if there are any questions about the integrity of the election or the vote count, you would have the ability to conduct a paper audit of that election. We've seen time and again through these DEF CON hacking conferences they have in Vegas almost every year how, children, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids go in and they do these demonstrations. Hey, we're going to time you. Can you hack into this electronic voting system from whatever state? And these kids are able to hack into these systems within minutes. Kids. What to speak of somebody who may try to do a concerted attack and manipulate the outcome of an election. So my bill is very simple. We know these vulnerabilities. States and counties have the federal government does not have the authority to administer elections, period. That is run by the counties and the states, and that's why the laws are very different in how they choose to do it. So my bill said, okay, well, there is funding that the federal government provides to these counties and states to administer these elections. This federal funding should come with a baseline requirement that these elections are auditable by having some form of a paper record. Nobody in Congress was interested in passing that legislation.
Of course not.
Even though we had statistics, and I believe this was in 2017, where the state of Virginia has, or the Commonwealth of Virginia, as they say, has off-year elections. So they don't hold their statewide elections on the same year, even numbered years. And that year they had was the first year that they had implemented, 17 or 19, but they had first implemented having some form of a paper record. And it was the year that they did not get a single question. The State Office of Elections did not get a single question or complaint about the integrity of their elections. And they did it because they saw, oh gosh, these electronic voting systems are really vulnerable. We need to do something about it. And they took action. The fact that this is not the case across the country is very concerning. It is concerning that you see so many of the Democrat elite dismiss people who merely ask questions about voter fraud. Well, no, it doesn't occur. When I was in Congress, I shared a house with my sister and her husband there in D.C. When election time came around, they got a few ballots from the previous owners of the home who had since been deceased. I don't know how many people in the country are getting ballots mailed to them to be filled out at home and returned.
Wow.
With the names of people who died, and there's no verification of that. So there are very clear steps that can and should be taken to increase and improve the integrity of our elections. The whole the ballot stuffing, where they pay people to go out and get ballots filled up, in like older care homes and these other places. There are a lot of questions around that process and ensuring the integrity that need to be addressed.
But even if you won, let's say you did win, even though you don't know, say you won. What forces the news to tell the truth of who won? There's no election law. There's no election law that the news is under. There's no law of anything, right? That they have to say this. They're under no civil or criminal liability to say anything. So even if you win the election, that's why I wonder, when Stephen Trump or Lindell come in and they start talking about the mail-in ballots or the voting stuff, is that how come nobody's talking about the guy who tells everybody who won? Our whole lives, we never got to see the phone call that they say they got when, they just called us right now and so on. Now they even do it before. Now they even do it like a projection style before the counting's even done. They say who won. I mean, we got to kill the messenger. We have to make a law that has a press if you're going to announce something, if Dana's going to announce something, everybody, we've always done press conferences. That's what we do. That's what people do. They do press conferences and the press comes. But this one, they call the press behind our backs and the press says it. You know, is that an accident? Or, you know, and the whole time we're looking here, the ball's over here. But what about these guys? Are we never going to look at these guys? I'm waiting for Trump to, you know, say, well, let's go look at these guys for a little bit. You know, we didn't see what happened. And it makes you wonder, why does CNN, Google, like you said, it's been curated, and Fox and all these people, there's nothing that holds them to that they got to tell the truth. What we need is the press conference. So if the guy doesn't tell the truth, he's incriminating himself right there. He works for the government. I'm sure he has to have signed some kind of oath, whether civil or criminal liability, that he has to tell the truth and then have all the news.
Well, that was the case. Just if that was the case with the news, they had to tell the truth. Like, they would be in a lot of trouble. Like, just imagine just the war in Iraq, just the weapons of mass destruction, just I mean, the Russia collusion scam that they talked about forever.
Yeah.
That the people responsible for that are totally being taken seriously in other manners.
Yeah.
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 And you know.
That is, I mean, it is not when people in the mainstream media talk about, you know, the elections and election fraud and, you know, outside forces coming in and trying to undermine and usurp our elections. They obviously never talk about themselves and how much propaganda they put out to create this facade of a democracy where essentially they work with the power elite in Washington from one party or another, and they basically decide, hey, here's the people that we're okay with voters being exposed to. These are the acceptable people, and here's the people who are unacceptable to the elite, and therefore we got to destroy them. And this is what I went through when I ran for president in 2020, the Democratic primary. From the very first day I announced through the entire campaign, it was already decided that I was not a candidate that they found acceptable. We are seeing and so they did everything they could to discredit and smear and, you know, media
Hillary
blackouts
Clinton
and
was
all
saying
this.
you were a Russian asset.
Exactly. And no member of the media ever said, oh, really? What evidence do you have of that?
Right.
They just, they repeated the line over and over and over again, and it worked. People believed it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the same thing happening now with RFK. They decided, hey, this guy is speaking way too much truth, and so we're going to do everything we possibly can to block voters from hearing him, and we are going to try to smear and discredit him with lies.